In the shadow of Edinburgh's South Bridge, completed in 1788, the Blair Street Vaults festered like an open wound beneath the city's bustling surface. Built into the bridge's 19 arches, these damp, cavernous chambers were meant to house artisans, cobblers, and merchants. But by the early 1800s, the vaults had become a refuge for the desperate, vagrants, thieves, and families fleeing the filth of the old town's winds. The air was thick with coal, smoke, and misery, the walls slick with seepage from the streets above. Disease and violence thrived in the dark, and the vaults earned a reputation as a place where lives were swallowed whole. Among the whispers of the vault's inhabitants was talk of a man known only as the Watcher, tall and gaunt, clad in a tattered blue coat that reeked of damp wool. He was said to haunt the deepest chambers, his heavy boots scraping the stone like a warning, his eyes, burning with a quiet fury, fixed on any who lingered too long. "Get out," he'd growl, his voice a low rasp that seemed to rise from the earth itself. Some claimed to bear marks after crossing his path, scratches or welts that appeared without cause, as if the Watcher's rage could claw through the veil between worlds. In the autumn of 1827, a young cooper named Thomas Bed ventured into the vaults to deliver barrels to a whiskey smuggler operating in the Blair Street chambers. Thomas, barely 20, was no stranger to Edinburgh's underbelly, but the vaults unnerved him. The city above was alive with the clatter of carts and the cries of fishwives. But down here, the silence was oppressive, broken only by the drip of water and the occasional moan of a vagrant huddled in the shadows. Thomas hefted his barrels through a narrow passage, his lantern casting a weak glow across the uneven stone. The smuggler, a grizzled man named Lachlan, had warned him to be quick. "The vaults don't take kindly to strangers," Lachlan had said, spitting into the dirt. "Mind the tall man in the blue coat. He's not fond of company." Thomas had laughed it off, chalking it up to the superstitions of men who lived half their lives drunk. But as he reached the gated chamber where Lachlan stored his casks, the air grew colder, the lantern's flame flickering despite no draught. He set the barrels down, his breath clouding in the chill. The gate, rusted and half open, led to a deeper vault, its blackness impenetrable. A heavy thud echoed behind him, like a boot striking stone. Thomas spun, his lantern swinging wildly. "Who's there?" he called, his voice swallowed by the chamber. Another thud, deliberate and closer. His pulse quickened. He'd heard tales of the Watcher, whispered by washerwomen and alehouse regulars, about a man who'd died in the vaults, perhaps a watchman or a debtor, bound to the place by some unfinished grudge. Some said he'd been crushed when the bridge's shoddy masonry collapsed during repairs in the 1790s. Others claimed he'd been murdered over a smuggler's debt, his body left to rot in the dark. "Get out." The words rumbled through the chamber, low and guttural, like stones grinding in a quarry. Thomas froze, his eyes darting to the gate. A shadow loomed there, tall, impossibly tall, its outline jagged with the frayed edges of a coat. The stench of damp earth and decay filled his lungs. Two eyes glinted in the dark, unblinking, boring into him with a hatred that felt older than the city itself. Thomas stumbled back, his heel catching on a loose stone. "I'm going," he stammered, clutching the lantern as if it could shield him. The figure took a step, its boots scraping the floor, and Thomas felt a sharp sting across his forearm, like a blade grazing his skin. He didn't wait to look. He ran, the barrels forgotten, his footsteps echoing as he fled through the twisting passages. The Watcher's boots followed, steady and relentless, until Thomas burst into the upper vault where Lachlan waited. "What's got you spooked, lad?" Lachlan asked, squinting through the gloom. "The Watcher," Thomas gasped, his chest heaving. "He was there, by the gate. Told me to get out." Lachlan's face darkened. He grabbed Thomas's arm, pulling up his sleeve. 3 red welts, fresh and raw, marred the skin. "You're lucky," Lachlan muttered. "Most don't leave with just marks." Thomas didn't sleep that night. The welts burned under the dim light of his lodging's candle, their edges sharper by morning. He avoided the vaults after that, but the memory of those eyes haunted him. Word of his encounters spread through the old town, joining the chorus of stories about the Watcher. A washerwoman claimed she'd seen him in 1825, glaring from a doorway as she fetched water. A smuggler swore he'd found scratches on his neck after hiding casks in the gated chamber. Even decades later, when the vaults were sealed and forgotten, the tales persisted, whispered by those who dared to remember. By 2025, the vaults had reopened as a tourist draw, their history polished for ghost tours. Guides recounted the Watcher's legend, pointing to the gated chamber where visitors still heard boots and felt unseen eyes. Some emerged with faint marks, scratches, welts, echoing the wounds of Thomas Bird, and others long gone. The Watcher, it seemed, had never left, bound to the vaults by a rage forged in Edinburgh's darkest days. He stood guard still, his growl a warning to all who trespassed. Get out. Many thanks for treading this tale's dark path. If its chill gripped you, like, follow, subscribe, and comment below.